Welcome to day 32 of our Lenten Prayer. Today we are thinking about Paul's passage from Ephesians where he talks about apostles, prophets, shepherds, evangelists and teachers, nicknamed APEST. May the peace of Christ be upon you. May the love of Christ fill you. May the grace of Christ wash over you. May the hope of Christ sustain you. May the heart of Christ be within you. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Remember today, you are a child of God. Remember that you are chosen by God. Remember that you are a servant of God. Remember that you are a leader with God. Remember God, because God remembers you. Amen. We're at the end of almost week 1 of our lockdown here in the United Kingdom and in many other places around the world. And many of us might be feeling a bit fed up of just being in the same place all the time. But throughout our lives, people have inspired us. People have challenged us. People have made us want to copy them. So today I want us to remember those people in particular and to give thanks for all those who have inspired us along life's way. To give thanks for those who have encouraged us on our own faith journey. And to give thanks for those teachers and role models in our life who have encouraged us and encouraged us to be courageous and different. Let's give thanks for those people today. The psalmist wrote in Psalm 45 verses 1 and 2. My heart is stirred by a noble theme. I recite my verses for the King. My tongue is the pen of a skillful writer. You are the most excellent of men, and your lips have been anointed by grace, since God has blessed you forever. God has given gifts and talents to all of us. Some of these are specific gifts for the upbuilding of the body of Christ, and some are to help us earn our living. Yet we are called to service and leadership roles, sometimes for a season, and sometimes for the rest of our lives. As you listen to these words from Paul, what encourages you and challenges you about them? This is from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 to 7 and 11 to 14. As a prisoner for the Lord then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called to one hope when you were called. One Lord, one faith, one baptism. One God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But to each one of us, grace has been given, as Christ apportioned it. So Christ himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers, to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ may be built up, until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. Then We will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful scheming. I wonder, what does it mean for you to be humble, gentle, and patient? I wonder, what part do you play in the building up of the body of Christ today? And I wonder, what does that phrase, the fullness of Christ, mean for you today? Paul was writing these words from prison. He was certain that the fivefold gifts listed were essential for the faith communities he served, and that they would remain relevant for the church today. Alan Hirsch said that the apostles extend the gospel, the prophets know God's will, the evangelists recruit, the shepherds or pastors nurture and protect, the teachers understand and explain. And I wonder, which one of these are you? And if you're not very sure and you've got a bit of time in your hands, why don't you go to fivefoldministry.com and do the little online test and see whether you are an apostle, a prophet, an evangelist, a pastor, shepherd, or a teacher. Go on, give it a try. I think today we need to give to God our gifting and our talents so that we might serve Him just that bit better. We need to learn to serve in whichever way we are called to serve, giving our all for the sake of the kingdom. Later, I would invite you to reread our passage from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1 to 7 and verses 11 to 14. And as you reread them, take stock of the challenges and the opportunities it may give to you today. Ray Bennett, in a book called The Light in the Heart, said, "You are unique. You have different talents and abilities. You don't have to always follow in the footsteps of others. And most important, you should always remind yourself that you don't have to do what everyone else is doing and have a responsibility to develop the talents you have been given today." Powerful words, are they not? So, celebrate your uniqueness today and be proud to be yourself. For that is how God made you and that is how God called you. Don't run yourself down or try and limit the wonderful things that you already do in God's name. We should celebrate it and be thankful, just as we celebrated all those teachers and others who inspired us in our past. Let's just bow our heads in prayer. I am not nothing. I am not someone. I am a child of God. I am a disciple of Christ. I am a servant of people. I am of God and with God. And I will not be afraid to be who I am in Christ. So be brave and share the gospel somewhere. Be courageous and speak God's truth. Be engaging and invite someone to follow Jesus. Be caring and look out for the vulnerable. Be wise and help others to understand God. And let his blessing be upon you, now and forevermore. Amen. Thank you for joining with us. Tomorrow we'll be doing our Facebook Live worship here from the manse at 11 o'clock.